On this episode of Montclair News Lab, stuck in traffic on campus? Well, you're not alone.
There's been extreme traffic and even the shuttles can't get to destinations on time.
Then a creepy look at real ghosts. You decide.
And that freaked out my entire family to the point that they cut the baby shower. They ended it early and everyone had to leave.
Later, Music Lab. Students share their favorite music to jam out to.
My birthday parties always surrounded the spooky holiday.
Your school, your news. All this and more on Montclair News Lab.
Hello, I'm Louis Biontalillo.
And I'm Bernice Dagwa. Welcome to Montclair News Lab. Since the semester began, Montclair State University students have been caught in jams, traffic jams. Patrina Geiger takes to the streets to report.
Montclair State University commuter student Matteo Macalino sits in bumper-to-bumper traffic every day, and that's just in the car park deck.
I spend 45 minutes just trying to get out of the garage because it seems like everyone's leaving at the same time. It's almost like everyone has the same schedule.
Commuter students aren't the only ones getting stuck in the gridlock. Despite paying hundreds of dollars for an NJ Transit parking pass, resident student Quinn Augustin still relies on the university shuttles to get to class, given how distant the transit parking deck is from the majority of her classes.
There's been extreme traffic and even the shuttles can't get to destinations on time.
Vice President of Facility Logistics and Support Services, William Fitzpatrick, recognizes the concern over the increased traffic.
We are working with the county and with local town to have the timing of the lights to coincide with the egress of students leaving campus, so that the timing of the light won't be so tight.
Director of Parking, Ben Amoya, leaves a statement of what he has to say about the parking situation. We understand traffic interruptions complicates drivers' ability to access parking spaces. However, this is not unlike any other university or other public spaces in which many vehicles are attempting to access the same area at the same time. With thousands of students arriving for classes at times with heavy traffic, it only creates more traffic jams around campus. As traffic frustrations pile up, university officials assure they're doing the best to help Red Hawks on the move. For Montclair News Lab, I'm Patrina Geiger.
Recently, Montclair State came together as a community to commemorate those lost during the pandemic. News Lab producer Daniela Jimenez brings us a report narrated by Maria Hoffman.
MSU students and faculty recently came together to honor the lives of loved ones who lost their lives to COVID.
Past 18 plus months has been a little bit of a nightmare, felt very long and been very difficult. And so now that we're back together, our campus is thriving, our community is thriving very well. We can't forget about the losses because everybody has a story on how COVID has impacted them.
Due to COVID, many people lost the ability to say goodbye to their loved ones.
I was one of those people who weren't able to attend a funeral, and this was really the only opportunity I kind of had to pay my respects to my grandfather in a way publicly.
The luminary served as a way to commemorate the lives of loved ones and give students a sense of positivity. That was the case for senior Daniela Bautista.
It makes me feel a lot more hopeful, like there is hope along the way. There's always a light in every darkness, so never lose hope.
Today really offered that sort of closure that maybe I didn't know I needed.
As the campus community continues to move forward, it is important to not lose sight of what has been overcome.
When things like this happen, we have to stop and pause and just remember the things we lost, but also the good things that may have come out of this.
Suzanne Pasquino, the program associate for the Office of Social Justice and Diversity, knows the campus community will persevere.
We're going to get through this. We're going to stay strong, stay positive, and stay tough.
MSU, a community that believes light and hope can come out of every darkness. For Montclair News Lab, I'm Maria Hoffman.
Focus Disruption is our year-long collaboration between all the student organizations in the School of Communication and Media, a look at how our world has changed since March 2020. Earlier, I spoke with educators from the Children's Center on campus to discuss changes in early childhood education. Today, I'm joined with Professor Victoria Puig, who is the faculty liaison at the Children's Center and a member here at Montclair State. And we're joined with two professors also who work at the Ben Samuels Children's Center, Dana Purcell and Erin Clark. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my first question is going to be directed to you, Victoria. I just wanted to ask, how has the pandemic affected early childhood education?
I mean, it's been interesting. For a while, we did shut down for a short while, and we did do some online services. And Erin and Dana can tell you more about that. But then when we came back, we've had a lot of new practices, and we have safety checks in the morning, and wearing masks, and making sure that the environment is safe and clean. We're also doing a lot more work outside. We've started kind of outdoor classrooms, and both Erin and Dana have done a really kind of exciting job with that, so I'm sure they'll tell you more about that. So it's really changed a lot of how we do things, how we work with families, even how we work with students, because we have a lot of Montclair State students that do internships with us, observations with us, clinical work with us. So it's really kind of affected all of those things.
Now, going off of what she said, this question is open to everyone here. Have you seen any learning or social setbacks in the changes that Victoria just mentioned?
Well, last year when we first opened, I noticed we were as Victoria mentioned, we were closed for about 5 months or 6 months. Mm. And when the children came back, we found that they needed a lot more emotional support.
Do you think if the schedule was a little bit different, maybe if it was lessened, they would have an easier time sort of integrating back into that social setting after the long year of quarantine that we had?
That I'm not sure, because I think it just impacted their well-being. Mm-hmm. And I think even though you try to shield children from the media and what they hear and listen to, they were hearing and listening to some pretty serious stuff. Mm-hmm. For the past 6 months, so before they came back to school. Therefore, it just kind of, I'm speaking from experience, because what I had noticed last year, specifically with my class, was a lot more talking about death and dying. Mm-hmm. than I've seen in the past years. A lot more pretending about death and dying than I've seen in the past year. So I'm not sure if a shortened time or a shortened day would have made that much of would have made the transition easier. I think that they were impacted, and no matter how long they were in school, it was going to be a challenge.
Now, do you think these effects are long-lasting for these children?
I mean, I think we had a slightly different experience in my classroom. Like, many of our children were so excited to be back at school, and we did have a few that had significant separation anxiety, having been home with parents, particularly those who were only children, so they really had very limited interaction with other children during this entire time. Mm-hmm. So being put back into a classroom with, last year we had a maximum of 10 in each of our preschools. Normally it's 19 or 20. So we did reduce our class size, which was beneficial in that the teachers were able to really spend a lot of one-on-one time with the kids. Yeah. So that was great. But many of them adjusted very quickly to being back at school. Mm-hmm. My demographics were that half of our children had been together prior to the pandemic. So there was a familiarity in being back. So there was a comfort in being back with peers, with me, being back in school. Just, it gave them a sense of normalcy.
There's something thrilling about spooky tales of the afterlife. But should we go out of our way to investigate paranormal activity? Issa Winek reports.
It all started when Montclair State student Kayleen Casales attended her aunt's baby shower at a daycare center where her aunt worked. Kayleen was warned to never enter the basement. The reason? It was haunted.
There had been reportings of a bunch of paranormal phenomenons happening there. That's what really intrigued me to go downstairs into the basement to try to provoke the ghost and get some footage of it.
Kayleen bravely entered the spooky space, trying to catch some paranormal activity on her phone. After not witnessing anything unusual, she went upstairs to review her footage, only to find a ghostly figure in one of her photos.
And there's an apparition there, and in front of me, in front of itself, either telling me to stop taking the pictures or as if it was coming at me. It's really, I can't figure out which it is.
Excited with the evidence, Kayleen tried to make further contact with the spirit, but she wasn't prepared for what came next.
I was trying to take it a step further. So I said, if there's really something in here, pop all the balloons. You know, we were at a baby shower, there's a bunch of balloons all over. And almost as if on cue, balloons started popping. And that freaked out my entire family to the point that they cut the baby shower. They ended it early and everyone had to leave.
Though calling ghosts might seem adventurous, spiritual advisors warn that it's more risky than we think. Kristen Wares is a psychic medium with over 10 years of experience in spirit summoning rituals. Her encounters contacting spirits taught her one thing: summoning ghosts isn't fun and games.
And if that spirit or deity does not want to work with you and does not want to be summoned and you continue to call on them, it's not going to end well, unfortunately.
Catholic priest Father Jim Chern from Montclair's Newman Catholic Center agrees that spirit conjuring is very tricky.
Anytime you're dealing with the spiritual world, you have to know exactly what you're dabbling with. And particularly when you start talking in terms of conjuring up spirits or trying to contact spirits, you're not quite sure who you're talking to.
And some spirits can have evil intentions.
You can probably think about like The Exorcist and like movies like that, where it gets to an extreme, and those things are real. That actually happens. It's not just a movie. They're rare, but they happen.
Yet for those who dare to contact the other side, Kristen advises to seek guidance from experienced practitioners.
Make sure you're going into it with someone who actually has gone through these processes so that you know what you're doing and they can lead you properly, and you learn how to open communications and close communications so that nothing negative happens to you.
Ghosts, whether they're real or not, shouldn't be messed with. Oh, and remember that daycare center where Kayleen took that mysterious photo? Well, we actually found out that at one point it used to be a funeral home. For Montclair News Lab, I am Issa Winek.
Now, time for our first Music Lab of the season. It's a segment where we share our favorite playlists and why they matter. This week, Maria Hoffman shares what it's like having a birthday 2 days after Halloween and how that affects her birthday jams.
Hey, I'm Maria Hoffman, and you're watching a Halloween special edition of Music Lab. Being born 2 days after Halloween, my birthday parties always surrounded the spooky holiday. When making the playlist, it wasn't a birthday bash until Monster Mash played over the loudspeakers. My mom made the playlist for the parties until I was old enough to take over. And when I did, I really got the party started. When I put on Heads Will Roll. One of the benefits about growing up around the ghostly holiday is that I learned to not be afraid of those scary things like other kids were, such as vampires or werewolves or witches. I guess you could say
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
I didn't get my license on my 17th birthday, but I did get it on November 30th of that year, which happened to be the 35th year anniversary of the song Thriller coming out. And what's Halloween without those famous dancing zombies? My family and I always got super into our costume choices. Surprised we never dressed up as the Addams family. That was your Halloween special edition of Music Lab. I'm Maria Hoffman. Thanks for watching me.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Montclair News Lab, on TikTok at montclair.newslab, and check out our website, montclairnewslab.tv, for more.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Montclair News Lab. I'm Bernice Degra.
And I'm Louis Beyond Lillo. We hope to see you next week for a brand new episode, and have a great week.